Hi, everybody. This is Laura with Stuff I Find Interesting. This is episode 54. And I would like to apologize for the crappy sound last time. I don't know what happened. Actually, I do know what happened. I updated my drivers. When I updated my drivers, it changed the sound of my microphone, which goes to show you should always test your stuff. Always, 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 always. Otherwise, you get people who are like, I can't hear you. And yeah, that's frustrating. I wouldn't want to listen to me either. That's terrible. Very sorry. Okay, so I'm supposed to go out with my girlfriend and have some drinks. So I have to be quick, which you guys know I struggle with. But I think I have a nice lineup of interesting things. First is the sordid, surreal, and spectacular history of Coney Island's Elephant Hotel. So, did you know that Coney Island had a hotel and it was shaped like an elephant? Here is a picture from the New York Public Library Digital Collection. It was 12 stories, 31 rooms, and it was elephant-sized. It was at Surf Avenue and West 12th Street. The elephant was a tin-clad wooden structure rising 150 feet high, and it was unlike any other elephant in the world. The animal's forelegs featured a tobacco shop. Its left lung was home to a museum, and visitors to the cheek room could look out the elephant eyes to the ocean beyond. Here's a rendering. Now, what do you think happened to this thing? Well, I'll tell you. It turned into a brothel, and then it burned down. It'll be in the links if you want to read more about it. Very sad news this week.
Cranes have a wide variety of territorial displays and signs of aggression to indicate their mood. What Walnut's doing right now, it looks like she's preening or fixing her feathers, but it's actually displaced aggression, so it's actually a sign of aggression and territoriality.
So she's pretty unhappy that I'm here talking to you right now?
Yeah, she's probably angry and jealous. My name is Chris Crow. I'm an animal keeper with the Smithsonian Conservation Biology Institute here in Front Royal, Virginia. This is Walnut, a white-naped crane, a very endangered species. There's only 5,000 in the wild. I've known Walnut for 15 years. We both arrived here the same year.
So Walnut is a crane. There's only 5,000 in the wild. They're an endangered species. And Walnut has fallen in love with her keeper. So her keeper, for the past 15 years, to keep her happy and to keep her laying eggs that can then be, hopefully turned into more beautiful cranes, he's been doing this dance for her for 15 years. He throws some grass. He kind of moves his arms like this. Well, the sad news is that she passed away this week. And I saw that and I was like, ah. So she lived a long life, though. I mean, she lived, her full life expectancy, but it's very sad. But it's interesting that birds can imprint on humans like that. A 1690s Peanut is reborn. This is next up. The Carolina African runner Peanut reemerges, giving farmers and chefs a new culinary adventure. So you know that cooking is hot. Finding new ways to cook, new things to cook with, also hot. This is a peanut that has gone extinct and has now been brought back. And it was brought back through just crazy randomness, just like most interesting things in the world. So the problem with the Carolina African peanut, and the reason why that it went extinct, is because that it's so tiny that when you shell it, it's much smaller than like a regular sized peanut, which has been genetically altered so that the peanut inside is bigger. So this is a sort of an original peanut, a peanut that hasn't been really altered all that much. And the peanuts are smaller and thus not really able to be machined as well. So he says it takes 6 of us cleaning and separating to get about 20 extra pounds of seed in a day. So he has to hand shell them to get some more seeds so that he can try to keep this crop sustained. It was brought to the port of Charleston in 1690 by African slaves. It is denser, sweeter, smaller, and has a higher oil content than the peanut we eat today. Originally, its culinary uses were influenced by West African practices. The peanuts were boiled, ground into meal, candied, mashed, or made into a hot beverage, roasted, and pressed into oil. So this gentleman was going through, he's a food historian, and he was going through this quest to recreate a historic Southern menu. And he found out that there was proof that there were some of these seeds that existed. So he's been looking around for 5 years to find some of these seeds. He gets a random call one day, and they're like, "Yeah, we got some here. We'll just send them to you." And it turns out that they took. The best part of this discovery is it has cultural and historical significance. The flower is wow, bam. The aroma is more potent than our traditional peanuts today. So what happens when you genetically modify a plants the way that we have in our agricultural history is that it loses some of its potency and its flavor. However, the genetically altered version, we could probably grow more of it, thus feeding more people. So it's a trade-off. The world's most isolated tree in Nigeria was knocked down by a drunk driver. Here's a picture of it. For decades, an acacia tree in the Nigerian Sahara served as a lone landmark in a deserted landscape. It was the only tree for 250 miles and was used as a marker by Tuareg traders and caravans on their travels across the expanse. However, one day in 1973, it was mysteriously knocked down. It has now been revealed that the cause might be a drunk driver. Here's another picture of the tree. This is the tree having been... No, that's just... I think that's just in healthier times. I think it was bigger because it looks like there's grass and stuff around it. The roots of this tree go down 100 feet, or they went down 100 feet. So it has become part of the stamp. The tree itself is in a museum. It's been preserved, so you can go look at it. And this is the beautiful piece of art that exists in its place. I've talked about this tree before, but it's always very interesting to me. Adam's Calendar, which is a mysterious stone structure in South Africa. And this was discovered by some guy paragliding. He was paragliding, and he was like, "What the heck is that?" So when you get down on the ground, you see all these weird rocks that seem to be random. However, they are not random. Here's a research paper. It'll be in the links, but it breaks down how all of these various markers have to do with the summer solstice, the winter solstice, different times of the year. So this is in Africa, and this is from, how old, when was this thing made? Give me a second. I had it pulled up. And then I lost it. A really long time ago. Can we say that? Really long time ago. Let's see. It's called Africa's Stonehenge. I don't know. It's really old. But here is the actual paper. And it talks about interpreting past structures with possible cosmic references in sub-Saharan Africa. So it's all about how these things that just seem to be like maybe random piles of rocks are not necessarily random piles of rocks. They were placed there deliberately and with great care and represented things that happened in the sky, which would have been much more important to people in the past than to us with our electricity and whatnot. Now there's Eve's tomb, which is in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. So we talked about Adam's Calendar. Now we're talking about Eve's tomb. This is it. This is the only picture we got. Not a lot. But it is believed to be the burial site of the mother of us all. It's one of the oldest cemeteries. And it is 120 meters long, 3 meters wide, 6 meters high. It started to deteriorate. It also deteriorated because of the culture of the area. The Wahhabist, I'm going to have to look that up later. The Wahhabist authorities believe that paying attention to a gravesite was idolatry. And so that was not something you really should do. So everything just kind of... It's been mentioned in many classic travel narratives. And that's it. That's all it says about it. Just that it's called Eve's tomb. Is the mother of us all buried there? Probably not. But there's probably some sort of truth in there. Somewhere. Moving on. What happened? Uh-oh. I don't know what happened. Oh no, it didn't work. Okay, moving on. So I had another insomniatic night, and I somehow ended up in Antarctica again. So we're going to go back to Antarctica. I think we've been there before. And if you want to know, Laura, why do you have insomnia? It's because I do not yet officially have a job. So I think I have one, but there's more levels that I have to go through. So the first level, flying colors all the way. They want me, let's go. Haven't gotten to the next level yet. Haven't heard anything. Haven't gotten any emails. No phone calls. No nothing. So, and it's been a little too soon since the interview to hammer down the door of my contact and say, "Hey, what's going on?" Because my stuff's not the most important thing in the world. Certainly, they have lots of stuff going on. So, Antarctica. Now, if you're going to send a bunch of troops to Antarctica, the first thing you need to do is you need to write a manual. And in the manual, you would have things like geography, static electricity, precipitation, magnetic storms, selection of personnel, physiology, heat conservation, hygiene, tobacco, big eye headache, group attitudes, readjustment, morale, heat conservation, sewing notes, nutrition, sanitation, transportation, logistics, cold injuries. There's a big part about cold injuries. Camp safety would be a big one. Survival. So this is the Polar Manual. This is written... Who wrote this? So this was written by the Department of Cold Weather Medicine, U.S. Naval Medical School, National Naval Medical Center, Bethesda, Maryland. And it was written when was this thing written? I don't know that it was written at that time. Maybe not. It's from a long time ago. Let's just put it that way. This is from 1965. This is actually written after. This is written with the knowledge that our troops learned in Project Iceworm, Camp Century, which we're going to talk about right now. Project Iceworm. Climate change may uncover a Cold War project left beneath the Arctic ice for generations. During the Cold War, the U.S. planned to build a secret nuclear launch site in the Arctic. From there, they would be able to destroy Soviet targets at a moment's notice. This project, codenamed Iceworm, was never finished. The military abandoned it after a few years and left it buried under layers of ice, but now a warming climate threatens to expose the site. Contaminants left behind decades ago could have a serious impact on the environment. In 1959, the U.S. Army sent the Corps of Engineers to Greenland to build an entire city under the ice. This city, called Camp Century, could house around 200 soldiers. It had its own nuclear power plant, hospital, movie theater, and chapel. The cover story was that Camp Century was a polar research station, and indeed, this was somewhat true. Scientists at the camp did, in fact, drill the very first ice core for studying the Earth's climate. But the city under the ice was actually meant to store up to 600 missiles. Here we have some wild photos. So when you're dealing with a project like this, you're dealing with, you're battling the elements. The elements. It's crazy to think about. So here are some more photos, period photos. And so what they would do is they would take a big piece of equipment and they would make like a big lane. And then they would put this piece of sort of curved roof made out of metal over top of the channel. And then that would be shored up, and then snow and stuff would go on top of that to help stabilize it. And that was how it was known as a cut and cover trenching technique. So they had these Swiss-made Peter plows, which were giant rotary snow milling machines. They could move up to 1,200 cubic yards of snow per hour. Here you can see a picture. The trench has been dug underneath. Got the scaffolding, and they're putting up the roof. And then under the roof and then in between the channels is where the structure would actually be built. So the structure would be built within the channel. And you could see it's pretty high. Pretty high. From a secret Cold War project to the future of the ice sheet. This is just a fun little thing I'm including in it. It's one of the things I really like about it is we've got the cutaway view of Camp Century, and it shows the size and the ambitiousness of this project. And it discusses it more in kind of like a entertaining way. Unlike me. Camp Century after abandonment. Now, we know that there's like ice and stuff right up there. So things are moving around. And not only are they moving around, but they're melting. So why is that? Why is that a problem? Well, that's a problem because there is actually life in Antarctica, believe it or not. And there's nuclear stuff up there, which we don't necessarily want spilling out into the world. There's probably also other contaminants. There's probably, I don't know, I'm trying to think of any number of things. You've got machine stuff like oil and gas. You've got waste from human beings. You've got, I thought that was my guy. If that was my guy, I would have stopped. Now, why do we care? What was another reason why we built this stuff up in Antarctica? It wasn't all just about the nuclear stuff. Well, it was at the time. That was really the focus. But what has emerged from Camp Century and Project Iceworm and the other associated sites is the science that came out of it. For example, the tritium profile of an ice core from Camp Century, Greenland. So this shows the amount of nuclear crap in the air. So you could see 1960, 1950. You can see all these peaks. Chernobyl, you can see where it peaked. And it says that there's more spikes than there should be, and they're not really sure why nowadays. When they monitor the environment, there's more tritium than should be there, but that's probably a subject for a whole other time. Now, I said that there was life, which is kind of surprising. There are microbial mats. Microbial mats are exactly that. They're microbes. They're all kind of, bundled up together in like a little mat. And I believe that they're only alive for like a couple months out of the year. So for a couple months out of the year, they come to life, they exist. Cold weather hits, and they go dormant. They are known as cyanobacterial mats. This goes into the history, not necessarily the history, the science of why it's bad that Camp Century is going to break down, and what it means for the environment, and what it means for the area, which I just said. I said environment, area, that means the same thing. I'm starting to fade out, which is not good for my friend. She's like, come out, Laura, we'll have a good time. I'm going to be like, I'm telling you. So, the other thing that came out of this is that the cores were discovered to have plant life and fossils in them that were indicative of a time when Antarctica was much warmer, much greener, and supported lots of life without having to dig channels and build tin roofs over top of them. The other thing that it showed is that Mother Nature changes quite violently sometimes. And in looking at the ice core, they can see what's going to happen. And what they've also discovered is that Greenland is an unstable ice sheet. For Schaefer, analyzing the Camp Century subglacial sample after it languished for more than half a century is a thrill, even though his team's results are bad news. As a scientist, it's exciting. As a citizen of the planet, it's horrifying. Researchers had long thought that Greenland's ice sheet, more than 2 miles thick, was essentially permanent and had blanketed the island for more than 2 million years. This subglacial sample confirms the massive ice sheet can probably melt far more easily than most models suggest, which would dump enough water into the oceans to raise the sea levels up by 20 feet, all but wiping major cities such as London and Boston off the map. So that's why we care about Camp Century. This goes into the construction, if you're into more about how they did it. And it's Arctic Spring. So the next couple of things I have are memories from people who were there. Not memories, but stuff. Accounts from people. So this is November 1959. This is written by the people that were there. What are some of the reasons why the Antarctic is important in man's scheme of things? From the scientific and philosophical points of view, the Antarctic is important as a source of essential data to a better understanding of planet Earth. In speaking of the Antarctic in the sense, one should also include the broad belt of oceans which surround it. We can tell this was written by one of the scientists and not by one of the nuclear guys. This is another newspaper. This is actually from 1990, McMurdo Station and Scott Base, and it's just a little snapshot of what life is like there and the kinds of things that happen. This is a website that I found, Ray Hansen, and it's his recollections from 1955 to 1958. He was one of the main guys who helped build the camp. And it says, Ray aren't anymore. He passed away June 2011. He walks on the eternal snowy fields around Thule, Camp Tutu, and Camp Century. He passed away in Black Hill, one of his favorite skiing places. And then his daughter wrote, yes, my dad did pass away after a skiing accident. He was a great skier, and though 82 years old, still tried to go every week. It was unfortunate. Someone out of control ran into him. He died from a subsequent bleed in his brain. However, he died doing something he really loved. Despite the risks, living a life of passionate pursuits up to the end, it's how I want to live my life. And then it has Ray Hansen's recollections and his photos, charts. Just an incredible wealth of information. More stuff. More stuff. We're going to keep it moving because I'm running behind. Polish Antarctic station will be reactivated. So there was a Polish Arctic station. It's now getting reactivated. And I read, was it Japan? No, it was China. China has a new Antarctic station. I saw this in the news today. It's the Quinling. And it's the fifth. Looks like it's the fifth Chinese station. So China has 5 stations. I'm going to have to go look at all these other stations. I'll bet that's interesting. If you hear my cat, it's because she thinks it's treat time. And she really wants treats, and she's really upset she's not getting them. But it's 4:34. It's not quite time. Not quite time for treats. When we think of Antarctica, we think of everything being, white everywhere. Oh, the other scientific part of Antarctica are the meteorites that fall there. That's obviously, gives us great insight into what's circling around out there. Well, I learned about Bunger Hills. It's a secluded, coastal, and uniquely ice-free region of undulating hills and deeply carved freshwater glacial lakes. Since their discovery by U.S. naval Operation High Jump in the late 1940s, the region has endured a limited human footprint with a few sporadic expeditions by the Soviet Union, later Poland, and then Australia. So if we look at this on the map, there we have it. This little spot near the coast that's kind of ice-free. We'll probably see more and more of that. More and more ice-free, I mean. Widespread public interest was aroused by the announcement in February 1947 that a large ice-free area on the Knox coast of Antarctica, dotted with multicolored lakes, had been discovered and photographed by aircraft of the United States Navy Operation High Jump. The Antarctic programs of the International Geophysical Year 1957 to 1958 will undoubtedly bring the areas into public attention again. And it goes into the geology of the area. Now, I discovered something shocking this week. So, Currier and Ives, classic Currier and Ives, right? They make calendars, they show up on mugs. Just sort of, quaint little snapshots of life. Well, they also did posters like this. And if you're shocked by the racism included in these posters, or whatever kind of printed material this was, if you're horrified, so I am too. I'm still in shock about this. Like Currier and Ives. I mean, I should be in shock. I was reading something on Reddit, and as usual, we're gonna move on. It's very unhappy, but I am gonna finish my story. So, it was on Reddit. And it was like, what are some things that you could get away with in 1980 that you can't get away with now? And I was thinking back to how I used to go out to eat with my grandpa every other weekend, from the time I was born till the time I was about 17. Go out to the same diner. Well, one day the diner had a new waitress, and the waitress came over. And she looked very nice, and I looked up and I smiled, and I was ready to give my order. And my grandfather looked up at her, and he said, "Could I have a waitress that isn't black?" Because the waitress was, in fact, African American, and he did not like that. And yeah, it kind of caught me by surprise. But I was a smart kid. I knew that my grandfather had antiquated ideas about things that I probably wasn't going to be able to change. But I was still shocked. How old was I? I was 7 years old. Why am I showing you these pictures? Because these pictures are of the place that inspired my favorite game, the Talos Principle. I'm always going on and on about that game. I've played it twice now, so I can't play it anymore. Like I've played it, I've outplayed it, and I'm sad because there's no more of it. But looking at these pictures gives me a new appreciation of the research that the game creators put into creating their unique spaces. We're going to go back to the Kyoto International Conference Center and my obsession with the Kyoto International Conference Center. Why am I obsessed with the Kyoto International Conference Center? I'll tell you. I swear I have dreams of this place. Look at that. Maybe it was used in movies, and it's in my brain that way. But I look at these pictures and I go, yeah, that's really familiar to me. And there's nothing around here that looks like that. Not like that anyway. Got the little waterworks. Environment created for conventions. So it's a convention center. There are some pretty heavy hitters that would go here, as well as rooms for smaller engagements. So if we look here, we can go and we can pick a room and we can look around it. Let's pick New Hall. New Hall. That's not the one I wanted. It's got like you can look at it and move the camera around. I looked for a 3D a 3D thingy of this, and this was all I could find. I think that's my friend, so I guess I have to wrap it up soon. So if we go here and we make this bigger, we can spin it around. Whee! This is not the most exciting room. There are other rooms that were way more exciting, which you can find on your own. This is a gallery of all the pictures. All of the pictures with the neat little details. I just love this place. Like, I need that in my house. I have no idea why. I just do. I need that. I don't even have anybody over. Like, there would be no reason for me to have that. And I still want it. Activating your spiritual body. Welcome before advancing to that blah, 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 whatever. So, have you ever been listening to a beautiful piece of music and you get chills up and down your spine? According to some people, some scientists or pseudoscientists, that's actually your spiritual energy moving around and shifting. And it is believed that you can activate that deliberately on your own, and that you can create this feeling and this emotion. Why would you want to do something like this? Because meditation actually changes the brain. What do you mean it changes the brain? Well, scientifically proven to change the brain. It changes the gray matter, prefrontal cortex, the amygdala, and the hippocampus. Specifically, the gray matter and the prefrontal cortex are strengthened and thicker, and the amygdala and the hippocampus are dampened down a little bit, so that when you have a response, like a stress response, the spike isn't quite as high. Pretty interesting, right? So think about that. We're going to finish off by looking at some brutalist architecture while we listen to some music. I don't remember which one. I don't remember which one I picked. Oh, it's this one. So, hopefully the sound is better this time. Apologies for the ramblingness of this. I didn't have any conspiracy stuff. Maybe next time. I hope everybody had a great week. I hope everybody has a good weekend. I'll probably be back on Sunday. I'm not really sure. Depends on how ambitious I get. This is brutalist architecture. That's really cool, right? I like that. Everything I've shown you today will be in the links so that you can enjoy it on your own time. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. My email is igneousinc9@gmail.com. And I hope everybody has